psychology major. I've been playing jazz music for about five years now. I play in the top jazz band here at the University of Florida. I play in a couple casual groups, nothing serious. Whenever I'm free, I play whenever I can. Improvisation is a very big part of jazz. Jazz music is basically built upon improvisation. It's about expression and expressing yourself. Improv is used a lot more in casual groups because there's a lot more structure when you have a full score to go off of. But in a casual group, like you'll probably just play the head once and then everyone will have a chance to improv. Whereas in a jazz ensemble, like you'll have to there's a lot less time pretty much because you have a lot more that you have to get through. In jazz band, the music's there are composed pieces, and then there are sections where there is improv involved. Because in jazz music, there's a head. A head is basically the melody, and then a person would improv upon that melody over different choruses. Choruses are repeats of the melody.
Just kind of like embellishing it as you go along.
So if you're playing the same piece, each performance is going to be different?
Yes, playing a piece each time it'll be different.
My name is Scott Wilson. I'm the Director of Jazz Studies here at the University of Florida. I teach jazz improvisation, jazz history, and jazz big bands.
When improvising, is there a certain person that takes lead, or does everyone go together, or is there like a certain instrument that leads the whole group?
No, improvising is really open. You can start tunes with an improvised bass solo, or improvised piano solo, or improvised drum solo, or a cadenza up front with an instrument. But there's no real hard, fast rule. Usually in a big band setting, you have a melody presented, and then a little bit of a development, and then a solo, which is supposed to be like the exposition of the themes. It works like that, kind of more structured in a big band setting. But I do gigs with groups where we don't use any music the whole time. So like we just go, okay, we're going to use a B-flat blues form, and we play a tune, and then we'll use numbers for key signatures and stuff as we switch keys, hand signals, and we can go places that way. So when you get a good improviser, you really don't need a whole lot. You can make great music just by putting them together, which is really cool.
So would you say improvisation is your favorite part of jazz?
Oh, most definitely. It's a free-form expression that requires the knowledge of many different styles and the knowledge of what the bass player is doing and the piano player when you're doing it at a really high level. So improvisation definitely, I think, is one of the highest forms of music because you have to create, you have to be the composer and the performer and the theorist and the stylistic expert all at the same time in real time. Whereas, say, in other professions, you may have a math problem, but you have all night to work on it, or so you might be quizzed on your knowledge, and you may have a book to answer. But with jazz, it's literally the song is on, let's hear what you know, and it's in real time. So it's a much more different platform and more adventurous and challenging and requires a little more bravery, from a lot of people.
Would you say that someone with more formal musical knowledge would be able to improvise better?
Most definitely, because it is like what they say, it's called a universal language. For example, if I sing something like that is like I'm singing, but at the same time, the language is there. There's bass words. Is a vocabulary word, and is a chord progression. So there is a knowledge where when you're doing it really well, you can literally talk to people and talk about emotions or things that you cannot discuss with words. If you're playing a funk groove and you give the bass player a real sassy trumpet line, that's going to inspire him to do a whole different thing and then pretty soon you're you know, and you have, you know, it's like, it's community, it's democracy, and it's also freedom at the same time. It emulates life in its purest form.
So would you say it's harder when like you know, when people have known each other for a long time and it's a small group that plays together versus, you know, these are all students who've never really met each other before? Is it harder for them to kind of get into a groove?
Absolutely, absolutely. Because when people are comfortable working or talking with each other, they become very free of that fear factor, which usually is the inhibitor that stops the flow, you know, of the brain. You know, you're like, oh, did I say the right thing? And then by the time you got to that point, you're out of the creative spot. So musicians, when they come to the table here and we get them in this little music hole, they get to know each other, and that does play a big role in how well they play together. It's really difficult to disappoint one of your friends, you know, and like not play your part well or something like that, than it is to somebody who you don't know and you just go home. You know, like, this person has stake in me and they think I'm awesome, therefore I must be awesome. You know, that self-fulfilled prophecy of a good competitive competition comes into play.
When you've been playing with people for a lot longer, you feel, and you know how they play a lot more. So you'll know how to respond to them because you'll know what they'll want to play next.
Anything can set off a band. It could be a person walks in the room, like some celebrity. Recently we were out in LA doing the Earth, Wind & Fire tribute concerts, and Stevie Wonder came and walked in, and so immediately when he walked in, the entire band assumed a different role and just played like, you know, I can't say how they played because I'd have to use some provocative language, but they played. You know, they really played well, and then Stevie came up and did like 4 numbers with the band, very superstitious and all that. And so even a person can affect the way musicians respond or they get excited. No different if you had an acting class and Tom Cruise walked in. You know, even the teachers would be like, you know, so people, environment play a big role. And then if you have a crowd that's really into it, it's amazing what a crowd, for people that don't spend time on a stage, if you got a people like 1,000 people screaming for a jazz band in a, you know, City of Angels musical or something like that, they're going to love it. You know, it'll probably keep them in music for the rest of their life, those moments. Really.
With improv, you have to know, like, there's a lot of thought processes that go into it because you have to be following the chords. You have to know how to embellish upon them. You have to know what to play. Like, even though it's very free, there are a lot of guidelines. Because there's usually just one person soloing, one solo instrument, and then you have the rhythm section backing you. The person who's playing the solo is leading, and the rhythm section is following them. The rhythm section will play off of what the soloist is doing.
Yeah, one thing about jazz music, what would I tell them? It's liberating. It's much more diverse than people think. There is jazz music for everybody. People think, oh, I'm not a jazz fan. They don't know what jazz is, because I can find any person and play them some jazz, whether it's Pat Metheny or Louis Armstrong or smooth jazz or some kind of beautiful ballad by a singer, and you can find jazz music that everybody will like. So that's what a lot of people don't realize. They think it's one thing, and it's not. Jazz means world music. That's basically what it means. It's everything, and it's a beautiful thing encompassing all the styles of music.